Good morning, Jared.
How we doing?
Good. How are you, my friend?
Excellent, excellent. Happy day.
Yeah, happy Friday to you, man.
I know the weeks are crazy, right? It doesn't even feel like it is Friday.
Moving so fast. Welcome into the Daily Huddle. Jared Jones, Russ Hill, we're part of the team at Partners in Leadership. We help organizations create a culture of accountability so they can accelerate achieving results, which is critically important today. It's always important, but especially in a period of massive disruption. The Daily Huddle, we come on every day at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, quick huddle. 15 minutes is all, sharing a few of the headlines that are standing out to us and then talking about one topic that we're finding value in when it comes to leading and helping people navigate this incredible disruption. So it seems like the whole state of Arizona, by the way, Jared, where I'm at, is going camping. I think everybody
you gotta get out of that valley, man.
And well, it's over 100 degrees, so it's that time when you go, maybe it wasn't such a good idea to live here. The whole winter we make fun of all the rest of you and go, yes, no, you're shoveling your driveway still. Enjoy that. It's sunny and beautiful here. We're out barbecuing when you guys are wearing all your coats, but then this time of year we go, yeah, now we get to pay the price for it. But anyway, so yeah, people want to get into the mountains. Yeah. A lot of people that haven't been to Arizona don't know we even have mountains and the incredible camping. But I think a lot of the campgrounds are closed. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but
hey man, when I grew up in Arizona, we never used campgrounds. We just went up to the Mogollon Rim, found some spot off the freeway in the woods, and camped out.
Yeah, those are called campgrounds. That's called National Forest.
National Forest might be closed. That's different, right?
I know when you're 17 or 18 years old, you don't really pay attention to the signs.
That's true.
But
when you're that age.
But when you're the dad of a family of 6, maybe you should. Anyway, all right, let's dive into the headlines. What stands out to you?
So Oregon there was a report out today that Oregon's population in their jails is down 45%.
45?
Yes, 45%. I was like, what? So I started reading the article. It's all their county jails. No one's out being a hooligan, so there's no arrests being made. So their population in their prisons, their jails are way down. And in fact, they're actually trying to release inmates early across the country that can qualify for that, because they're worried about an outbreak inside of a prison where you can't social distance as well based on the circumstances that they're sitting there in. So
wow. That's
interesting. Didn't even think about the impact of prisons right now.
Yeah, it's so interesting to think about all the different things that are being impacted by this that you don't think about. I'm sitting here looking at you, Jared, and I'm wondering if there's a big S. There should be a big S on your shirt with that white background behind you. The lights are kind of bright on there, and then this red shirt like overpowered. It might be because we've been watching so many Marvel movies.
Maybe
there's the last week that I look at you on there, I'm like just expecting you to stand up, like rip off.
It's my amazing physique actually that's creating that, and it's not the shirt.
Yes, let's move on to the next topic. Oh, you got a physique, that's sure. Then it might be amazing in certain ways. Amazing can be defined different ways, right? My physique is certainly changing too, and I really don't want to talk about it right now. I need the gyms to reopen. Okay, so the headline for me was it's not too unpredictable, but the market in April. It's crazy how all these companies are in pain. So many things are in rough shape, and yet the markets. We're now May 1st, right? So the month of April is over. The month of April was the best month in the U.S. stock market since 1987.
Isn't that crazy?
Up 13%. We haven't seen gains like that in the markets since 1987. None of my kids were alive back in the time. I mean, that was years before, obviously.
Are they counting that because of the dip that occurred in March? That rebound
started? It's where so that's some of it where the month started, and then you're just looking at the gains, right?
Yeah.
So if you put money in on April 1st, April 1st, and you took your money out on April 30th, you would have seen a 13. Not obviously different stocks and all that sort of thing, but it'll be interesting to see where that plays out. The markets I think are down. Yeah, the Dow is down more than 500 points today. And the economy is rough when on my Apple Watch, like part of the screen is the stock market.
Yeah.
When I've got that going, the market's having a rough time. But anyway, a couple things that stood out to me in the markets. Amazon, Jeff Bezos on the quarterly earnings call this week said to investors, we think we could lose in this next quarter as much as $1.5 billion.
Wow.
If that's true, it would break the trend of Amazon's incredible growth.
Why are they thinking that for Amazon?
Yeah, and it's a good question because demand's surging, right? They can't even keep up with it. Bezos said it's because of all of the expense of the PPPs, the protective gear for employees. They're having to do, all these tests, like and fulfillment centers, so all the additional challenges that they're having, health challenges is driving up expense. I went to the convenience store this morning, got my healthy drink, speaking of my physique. But I saw the headline on a newspaper. They still publish those apparently. There was one at the checkout stand, and I think it was USA Today saying that meat could be in short supply again soon.
Yep, I saw that one.
That headline stood out to me too. And being on the call yesterday that I was referencing, we were live on here yesterday. We one of the meetings I had yesterday was with leaders of a food manufacturing company. And because of the health concerns, because their employees have to stand closer than 6 feet apart, and viruses can spread so quickly in a place like a food manufacturing plant, they're having to close some of them down. So that could impact meat. So here we go again with the grocery store run on chicken and all that sort of stuff. So
totally. Yeah.
Okay, so the topic for today is that we want to cover in our in the next 7 or 8 minutes is what lessons are we learning in this disruption? And this, Jared, is what motivated this topic was my most engaged LinkedIn post ever, which was last night. It's got over 150 comments on it, which for me is unusual. Just tons of people weighing in. And the question I asked last night as I was getting ready to head off to our family dinner was, and when I say head off to our family dinner, that means walk upstairs.
Yeah. A whole new definition nowadays.
Totally. So the question was, what 2 words sum up the lessons you've learned 2 months into COVID-19? And apparently there were a flood of people on LinkedIn who wanted to weigh in on that. And the responses were pretty incredible. So it made me think, we ought to talk about that real quick. What lessons are we hearing leaders express in all of our calls in our firm with leaders across all industries right now? What lessons are we learning? So what comes to mind when we talk about that, Jared?
So one of the things that came to my mind as I thought about this was you've heard this statement for years. People say we're great in a crisis, right? And I've analyzed that a little bit over the years. When I hear we're great in a crisis, well, what does that really mean? Well, one of the things that I found is in a crisis, you know exactly what the outcome is. If the building's on fire, you need to get out of the building, right? There's absolute clarity on the outcome. Mm-hmm. The other thing that's always true in a crisis, or most of the time is true in a crisis, is the why is really clear. I know why I need to get out of the building fast because there's urgency. I could die if I stay here. The other thing that happens that's really interesting, though, when a crisis hits, people suspend their current thinking. Take this in a business perspective. Have you ever been in a crisis professionally, some crisis, whatever you might want to just call that as even a disruption? You'll hear people say this statement. I know that's the way we normally do it. We can't do it that way right now because we have to get this other result or get this outcome. So think about that. What people are really saying is we know how to be effective. We just don't normally do it that way. And so when you step back and think about those 3 elements in a crisis, right, there's total clarity on the outcome. The why, there's urgency, you understand it. And people suspend that current thinking that's, been the way they've done it for years. It really made me think about this moment. In a disruption, it's a little different than a crisis. A crisis is usually something that's like short-term right on top of you, where this is kind of a moving target to a certain degree. You can define.
I think it's been a crisis. Like this has been a crisis. there are elements of this disruption that have been the crisis, right? I mean, you could describe it that way.
And there are pockets of crisis within this disruption, like the New York City hospital needs and some of those things, right? But when you look at across the bigger scope of this, it's made me consider when it's a disruption like this, is it the same? Do the same principles hold true for the larger disruption that hold true in more of a short-term crisis mode that I've been thinking about with clients for years? And I think a lot of those same elements actually do hold true. We need absolute clarity. What is it we absolutely have to do here? And then when you think about the why, that's got to be super clear. And then we do have to absolutely suspend our current thinking and do things differently in order to get through what we're staring down the abyss into right now. So that's what struck me as I thought about it.
Gotcha. It is so interesting to analyze or think about how organizations and teams function differently in crisis or disruption, or when everything's on the line.
Yeah.
Which ties into one of the lessons, and that, we could spend hours on this, right? Lessons you're learning. You could go personal, you could go professional, you could go so many different places with lessons we're all learning during this particular disruption. For me, one of the things that stands out yet again, Jared, is the amount of waste in companies, the amount of inefficiency, and the inefficiencies that we put up with that get in our way. And it's when you're on the calls and in these meetings with the leaders that we consult with as a firm, it's so interesting to hear, again, to your point, the urgency with which they're trying to come up with solutions. They're prioritizing, they're moving aside things that aren't critical. And as I'm listening to that, I'm thinking, well, why don't we function this way all the time? Like, why do we put up with those departments that are dragging us down?
It's back to that. I know we normally do it this way, but we can't do it this way now. We know how to be effective. We just don't do it.
Yeah. I was on a call with some leaders of an organization that had furloughed a decent percentage of their staff. And one of the senior executives said on the call, we have all the human empathy for our employees who aren't here. And this statement, I just thought, whoa. The leader said, but I feel like we haven't been impacted that much. I thought, wow, really? You furloughed that big of a percentage of the organization, and the company is able to move at a pretty good clip, and you're not feeling too much pain.
Yeah.
What should that be teaching you? And that's not a reflection necessarily of those people. It's a reflection of
structure.
Right. And departments and different things. And so ever since I've been in this role of working at our firm and traveling 160 flights a year and going all over the world and walking in the conference rooms and ballrooms with different organizations and different leadership teams, one of the things that struck me the most as I began that career was waste.
Yeah.
Was especially these large corporations. Yep. How slow they are, how much discussion there is. It just goes forever.
Yep.
Like, when somebody just make a decision, let's move.
Well, you think about
with it.
You think of how people view a job versus a result, right? In most cases, people are thinking of the job in terms of all the activities. And in organizations, when an organization's brand new, it's a startup organization, an entrepreneurial organization, you wear 15 hats. It doesn't matter what your title is. You do whatever needs to be done. But the bigger an organization gets, the bigger that structure becomes, and people lose that connection to the result, and they get a job, which is a bunch of activity. And so people actually, when you see something slipping through the cracks, we hear this all the time. Hey, we need to hire somebody to fill that crack. We need to hire someone to do that job because it's slipping. And that's how this thing grows so big over time, as we start hiring crack fillers, is the way I like to call it, right? We hire these crack fillers to fill in all the cracks, yet we're still stuck going, well, why aren't we getting the result we want to get? Because people are now just checking the box, doing jobs, tasks. They're not totally focused on the result that we still need to get. And so you get this kind of bloated scenario happening in organizations almost naturally, because people don't want to do some of the menial tasks or the stuff. So let's hire someone to do that. And the next thing you know, you've got 20% of your organization that's doing jobs that you're not really all that impacted by.
Yeah, I think that is one of the most powerful things that we coach our clients on is activity versus results, the job versus the result as you're describing, because everybody feels like they're busy. Yeah. You can't talk to anyone from the age of 7 to 75 or 90 who doesn't feel busy.
Not to define yourself as busy.
I know, but I totally in an organization like, hello, that's an IQ test, right? But even if you go outside of work, I mean, think about our younger kids.
Yeah.
They think, man, how can you ask me to do that, mom and dad? I got so many things to do. And you're like, you're 7. Like, what are you? And then you think about, and again, with all the love in the world for a grandparent or somebody that's retired and they're like, man, hope I can make it to that. We're really busy. I'm like, you don't have a job. And you're like, what are you busy with? and so everyone, we all think we're busy, but it's because of activities that may or may not be helping us achieve results. So I love that point. All right, we got to wrap up. I got a meeting I got to jump back into. I'm watching on one side of my screen this virtual Zoom meeting that's happening that I jumped out of to do this, and now I'm jumping back into that. That's kind of the reality of our lives these days for all of us, right? So, Jared, any fun weekend plans?
We're going to go up to the lake, try to get the boat out.
You going to get in the water?
I'm going to get in the water.
Wow. You guys are braver in Washington. I would not get anywhere near a lake in Washington State or anywhere north of like the Arizona-Utah border. Anywhere north of that, I'm not touching your body of water for 2 more months.
You've become weak.
I have, man. These lakes in Arizona get like 85-degree water, and I love them. So anyway, all right, have a great weekend, and everybody will talk to you on Monday.
Yep.